Hey, this is Gilgamesh. I want to talk about something that I've been thinking about doing for a while. And it is, I want to explain for people that don't understand why the prequels are everything that the original trilogy. I understand why there's people that don't like the prequels. The people that don't like this are what I call Disney fans. They grew up on Disney. They weren't born when the original trilogy came out, which was 77, 80, and 83. I was born in 71, so I was a kid when I saw these. There's a lot of younger people who, a lot of them probably were, they were definitely kids when the prequels came out. They may have only seen the extended editions in theaters. But yeah, you see that and you're like, that's your real first experience in theaters. And so you have nothing, you weren't there to see the original theatrical cuts of the movies in theaters, so you've seen them on TV, but you didn't get that theatrical. And the only other thing you saw maybe was the extended editions in theaters, so they're not exactly like the theatrical cuts. So they're different. So when you saw the prequels, you're like, oh, these are not good. So I do understand that, but this is why I'm going to go through and explain why the prequels are as good as the original trilogy. And see, right here was Lucas's wife at the time. She's credited with editing 4 and 6, but she did edit 5, but she was uncredited for that. So she helped shape these movies for George Lucas, and of course he only directed the first one, A New Hope. Then Ivan Kershner directed Empire Strikes Back, which I think should have been called Revenge of the Empire. I think that would have been a far better title than Richard Marquardt. He actually directed Return of the Jedi. And the thing is, people go, oh, the original trilogy. Okay, I'm going to break it down with the characters of these, why it's like, okay, here's A New Hope. Okay, the cast, here's the cast. Okay, now I'm going to go by the counterpart. There's 3 characters that I'm going to go through, and then 3 in the prequels that sort of fit with, especially 2 of these. Carrie, Leia, Han. Han, I'm just going to get out of the way, was a driver. That's all he was also a bad guy. He was a criminal. He was a smuggler. So when George said, and this is what bugged me, and I'm going to criticize this, when he put in the special edition, Guido shooting first, it never made sense because Han would never have waited for Guido to shoot first. That when George said, well, he didn't want people to think Han was a bad guy. He's a smuggler, so he's a criminal. And so, yeah, people knew he was a criminal. Him shooting Guido shooting first didn't change people's opinion. He was the bad boy, bad guy. So he was a criminal. So, but let's look at Leia. Everybody gets this. She's actually essentially a feminist character, and she's a bossy woman. When we first meet her, what does she do? Okay. She has a stolen Death Star plan. She puts them in R2-D2. They get sent down to Tatooine. We find that out later, what the planet that they land on. But here's the thing. All the guys that are with her all get killed. They don't survive. She gets captured. Okay. And then she's, of course, she's interrogated, probably tortured by her father, Vader, then brought in front of Tarkin. Okay. She's ultimately responsible for the death of her aunt and uncle. Oh, yeah. Because of her sending the plans, what happens? Her aunt and, we find out later she's Luke's sister, so Uncle Owen and, the aunt and uncle get killed they're killed because of the droids. Now, she's brought in front of Tarkin, played by the late great Peter Cushing, that's my favorite character in A New Hope was Tarkin, because He's particularly really good at being this sinister, evil character, and he never raises his voice. When Vader's force choking, he tells Vader to let him go, and Vader does it. Then when he confronts Leia, she tells him where the rebels are. He goes, and I love this because he backs her down. She cowers away, and then she we'll deal with your rebel friends soon enough, and tells them proceed to blow. And she goes, but they're peaceful, and gets all around blown up. Okay, she's Tarkin saying there, I don't trust you. You are an absolute liar. He doesn't believe her, and we know she's a liar. And so, and Luke Skywalker, I'll get to him, but when she's been captured on the Death Star, and then he has, Han, Luke, and Obi-Wan basically are heading off to go to Alderaan. Of course, we know the Death Star blew it up. They get captured on the Death Star. Han and Luke are looking for they find Leia. And Leia goes, you're too short to be I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here with Obi-Wan Kenobi. We've come to rescue you. She goes, Obi-Wan? Yeah, and then what does she do is they get shot at by the most idiotic... What's with these damn stormtroopers not hitting anything? She takes one of the pistols from, rifles or whatever from, I think it's Han, shoots a hole and says, everybody get in there. Okay, this is what I mean by stupid. She almost gets everybody from herself, Han, Luke, and Chewie crushed to death in a trash compactor. Wow, what a strong woman. So narcissistic and arrogant and bossy and I love the character, but dear God, did she almost get them crushed. And it takes 2 droids to save them. Obi-Wan sacrificed himself. The men have to save her from her incompetence. That's just in A New Hope. So get to the Luke Skywalker. And then we get to Empire. What does she do? She's the leader of the rebels. Okay, why the hell is the fucking on a frozen planet did they put the shield generator on the surface? Couldn't they have put this underground? Maybe, but they don't even... No, that's how the Empire finds them. On Hoth because of the shield generator. So there's her dumb move. Okay, then she treats, of course there's the moment when they find, after Han's rescued Luke, and he wakes up after being in the bath. He's on the bed, and she calls Han a scruffy nerf herder, and he sounds pretty stupid, says, scruffy nerf herder, and then she looks back, and she kisses her brother, and Han's left with the gaping... And Luke, of course, doesn't know yet that that's his sister. And, of course, she's this way to Han the entire... When they get off Hoth, Luke goes to Dagobah. I'll deal with Luke later. But she just constantly talks down to Han Solo the whole time, saying how bad he is at everything, that he's an idiot, he doesn't know anything. Then we get to Bazbin, where she's not sure of this place. She's like, we should leave. I don't know about this place. She's still kind of talking down. And then we get Lando Calrissian, and, she even says, I don't trust him. He's hiding, But as soon as Han says, don't worry about it, he's my friend. He would never betray me. She suddenly goes, uh-huh. And they get captured. What happens? She tells Han, I love you. He says, I know. And he gets frozen carbonite, and then they basically want to kill Lando, but he says, I can, we can still save him, And of course, we do know that he had the Millennium Falcon before Han, so that's how he knows how to fly it. By the way, weirdly, Lando Calrissian is wearing, Han's clothes at the end of the movie. Yeah, don't know why, but yeah. So, I love this character. We get to Return the Jedi, and she's becomes unsure of herself. Like, she questions, are these really, is this, she doesn't think the plan's getting to Endor are going to work. The codes are old. She's starting to have a panic attack about it. She becomes, because of these other two, she starts doubting herself the whole time. Plus, there's the whole thing where she gets left behind, gets rescued by, the Ewoks. And it takes Luke, her brother, to get her self-confidence because she's demoralized. She's screwed up. She realizes she's completely terrible at leading. And it's Luke that basically builds her confidence up by revealing that they're brother and sister and that she has the same powers. Because she doesn't believe it until he says we're brother and sister. And then she reveals she kind of knew Vader was her father and that, all these things. It's like suddenly and then she talks to Han, it's like, and then when he says, I love you at the end before they're saved, she goes, I know. She's got her confidence back. This is a character that goes through this bossy, bitchy, through 2 movies, and then suddenly she doesn't believe in herself until her brother convinces her who she really is. And asked her, what do you remember about your mother? Crying. She's not talking about her adopted mother. She's talking about her mother when they were born. She remembers their mother the day they were born. And as we saw in the prequels, Amidala was crying as she gave birth to her twins. And so yeah, she's, and in the prequels, her mother is a lot like her. Very bossy, very kind of like when she, the way, and Natalie Portman sucks at acting. But I will say this. She gives one of the best lines in the whole movie. Anakin, you're breaking my heart. I swear to God, I thought I was going to die of laughter when she delivered that line. And it's cheesy. That's another thing. I'll get to but Amidala is essentially Leia. She's bossy. She talks down to Anakin. She doesn't do shit for him. She marries him, gets pregnant, and she says that one great line. Then in the Senate, she goes, so this is how the Republic dies, and a loud applause. So yeah, you could see the similarities between her and Leia with the fact that they both think they're more important than they are, that they can talk down to people, but let's go back to the original trilogy. Luke Skywalker. Okay, Luke, basically, played by Mark Hamill, is kind of a whiny man-child in the first. Kind of, he's actually said, I think he's 70, in reality, he was 7 years older than Carrie Fisher. I did not know that. I thought she was actually older than him. Not a joke. Okay. His character is he's the farm boy. He wants to go and join the rebels to fight against the Empire. He's whining throughout the first movie. He's not, even, like, the whole thing, the Force and everything, he's not sure about that until Obi-Wan tells him again, trust in the Force, believe, all that stuff. He does succeed in blowing the Death Star up, but then we get to Empire. And this is I'll get to Anakin, the complaints people had about him being whiny and everything. But Luke, for 2 movies, whines a lot. Like in Empire Strikes Back. Like I said, it should have been called Revenge of the Empire. Better title. Because they do get revenge in the second movie. He goes to, Dagobah, he meets Yoda. He starts doing his training, and this is where, as a kid, I'm sitting in the theater watching this, and it's the scene that gives away the twist ending, is the tree scene, when he's being sent in to be tested, and basically he's told, be mindful of your feelings, they will betray you, and Yoda says, that's Obi-Wan says that, and Yoda says, when he says, what's in there, he goes, nothing you don't take with you. So he goes in there, he faces Vader, he cuts it off, the mask blows off, and who's behind it? Luke. In the theater, I am not kidding, I saw this and I said, he's telling us that Vader's Luke's father. So right there, most people didn't pay attention to this. I was a kid, and I said, in the theater, I shouted this, Luke Sky, they're telling you that Vader is Luke's father. Just giving that away. Okay. Then later, talk about the Whiny Man title. Okay, there's a point where Yoda says, now lift the X-Wing. He wants him to lift the X-Wing out of the swamp. He tries, he fails, he goes, it's too hard, I can't do it. And Yoda says there's no do, there's no try, there's only do or don't do. No, there is no try. So Yoda, this is actually what will lead to Yoda's death. Because if you watch as he's lifting, he gets it out, you see suddenly he has a little, you see there's something, obviously it had an effect on Yoda at his age. He's over 1,000 years old. And so he's affected by, and Luke basically rushes off like a immature boy to go face off against Vader. And he fails miserably. This is when he finds out, when most people go, when he leaves, Obi-Wan says, all hope is lost, and Yoda reveals, Leia being his sister, there's another Skywalker. I said, it's the same thing I said, Leia is Luke's sister. I had no idea that actually was going to happen. I said this in theater later, a guy comes out and said, you ruined the movie. I said, I can't help the fact that you're too stupid to actually figure that out, that Vader is Luke's father. And my mother said, yeah, she can't help that you're too, and actually called him a retard. Said she can't help that you're too retard. You're a retard for not noticing. She noticed it too. And she goes, yeah. She agreed with me and told the guy, you're basically a retard if you didn't figure out that thing before the big reveal, the twist. So yeah. Okay. Like I said, Han's a driver. Now, there's dick cheese of dialogue. There's the whole thing with the stormtrooper banging their head in a door. There's the, Mos Eisley spaceport. Well, find more rich hive of scum and villainy. How cheesy is that line that we remember it? And then there's the scene where Leia and Luke are together. She kisses him on the cheek. And you hear they're firing at it, and I think she grabs and fires and back, and it sounds like a gun going off. That's still in the movie, by the way. Yeah, that weirdly gunshot sound, that goofy gunshot that you don't hear any other time in the movie, is in that particular scene. That's what I'm talking about, cheesiness. In the original trilogy, it's like when Han makes fun of the Force, and then he tells, yeah, you might want to let a Wookiee win. They tend to rip arms off. It's like, there's a lot of, cheesy dialogue in there. Now, the counterpart to Luke, there's two. Anakin Skywalker and Jar Jar Binks. I love Jar Jar Binks. I'm going to explain why Jar Jar Binks is actually probably a character that doesn't get a whole lot of respect, but should. And it's really because he's an unappreciated, character. Look at this. We're going to view some of these characters. Jar Jar Binks, most people go, oh my god, he's, first of all, the actor Armin Vest learned Pidgin, which is the language of Papua New Guinea, which, by the way, is not hard to learn, not easy to learn. And he did the motion capture for the character. Now, the thing about him is he's a teenager in the Phantom Menace. And the only time he reverts back to that is when he sees Anakin. He hasn't seen him since he was a little boy. He goes, oh, Annie, look, you got it so big. Anakin shuts it down immediately, going, yeah, and I see you too, Jar Jar. He immediately stops acting like the teenager. And by the third film, he's a complete adult, and everyone forgets that he was goofy. That's what I'm talking about. He has this arc. Like Luke becoming a Jedi by Return of the Jedi, Jar Jar Binks goes from teenager to an adult. And by the way, Jar Jar Binks is essentially a teenager. He's goofy, like all kids when they hit puberty. hit those teen, this is the thing. You're goofy. Your parents see this and they go, oh my God, look at, you're an embarrassment. So essentially that's what Jar Jar Binks is. And by the time he's sent out essentially like what the Aborigines do with their teenage boys, send them out to become men, and they send them on a walkabout. That's essentially what's happened. Jar Jar Binks is sent out to become a man. So he leaves, he runs into, he's goofy. I love the character because he is essentially what everybody is when they're a kid. By the time we get to the third movie, he's fully an adult, and you can't even tell he's the same character. It's like Anakin Skywalker. Anakin is the most tragic character in all of Star Wars because he's a slave at first, rescued by Qui-Gon Jinn, who saw the potential. The only one that actually truly saw Anakin is, and by the way, just to clear some, midichlorians isn't what makes you, it doesn't have anything to do, it isn't about the Force combines everything. It means the higher count you have, the stronger you are with the Force. Means you can wield it, like Palpatine had the highest midichlorian count. Anakin would, because he is in fact Palpatine's son. Sheev Palpatine used the Force to impregnate Anakin's mother. Sending his DNA, he used the Force. That's how, because Qui-Gon Jinn asked her, who's Anakin's father? She says he has no father. She just remembers suddenly this bright light, and then she was pregnant. That's what Palpatine did to create, and he smiles when he sees his boy. So, yeah. And he goes from, and by the way, only Qui-Gon Jinn truly believed in Anakin. Not even, he's the only one that saw, he was what they were looking for. He was the one to bring balance to the Force. Obi-Wan's promises to train him, to make him a Jedi, but he basically sort of doesn't do it. And a perfect example of Anakin's downfall is, and why I love this character also, is when he goes back home and he runs into his brother, Owen, and his sister-in-law, and they tell him what happened to, his mother, finds out that the Sand People have her. When he goes to her, he finds where she is, he finds her, and the tragedy is she dies in his arms. So he brings her back. They basically, I think either they burned her or buried her. They had a funeral for her. And goes back and wipes out these Sand People who took his mother. How do we know this? Because when he gets back to Padme, Hayden Christensen actually cried for real, which is hard to do. Unlike Natalie Portman, he actually was crying and breaking down, and got into the character to the point he actually has this emotional breakdown of what he did, and all Padme can do is nothing. She doesn't even tell Obi-Wan Kenobi what's happened. He says, after finding his mother, he went back and he murdered the Sand People, the women, even the children. This is where in Revenge of the Sith, where he's having these nightmares after what happened with his mother, with his wife, Padme. He's worried she's going to die. This is where, like I said, he shows what a great character Anakin is. And why Hayden plays it so well. He has the opposite. He's whiny like a child, because he's been told he's the chosen one. Yet the Jedi treat him like a child, and this is true. Even Obi-Wan Kenobi doesn't spend any real time with him when we see Anakin from the boy to where he is, and he's supposed to be Obi-Wan, he's supposed to be training him, yet Obi-Wan's always running off on his own. Anakin, except for a couple times with him, he's usually with Padme, he's never really being trained to be a Jedi. So Obi-Wan never really wanted to train him. The Jedi don't really believe in him. Only Qui-Gon Jinn, and if he lived, he would have rescued Anakin's mother. No one went after her. So Anakin's downfall is cemented. And then, when we get to Revenge of the Sith, the Jedi believe they believe Palpatine is the Sith Lord, but they can't prove it. They need proof, so they send Anakin. Dumbest move they could have done, because Palpatine this is the he's laid a trap for the Jedi, and they walked into it. Like I said, I love is that he's only time he's gonna lie to Anakin is when he says he can save his wife. He never intended to, because he knows he can't allow Padme to live. If she lives, his grandson, which is Luke, will be his downfall. He's seen this already. That's why he lied and said he'll save her. He never intends to. Knowing what's happened, he can already tell what's happened to Anakin. His mother's dead, so he's traumatized. And so when he's talking to him, he's telling him about the Jedi and the Sith and everything. And he essentially brings up the Jedi and the Sith both have this, they will lie to people. They'll say anything, they'll tell you whatever you want to hear, and they'll lie to you. I'll get to that. But then he says there's the darker side. There's like his master knew how to heal people using the Force. He talks about bringing people back from the dead, using the Force to create life. All these things. He's talking about the dark side. And he tells them, go ahead. And he says, points out, if I remember right, I don't know if he directly talks about what happened 1,000 years ago. Why? But I'll explain. 1,000 years ago, the Jedi, the Sith, Palpatine using Order 66 to wipe out the Jedi. 1,000 years ago, this is what the Jedi did to the Sith. They went after anybody who was a Sith. They thought this is why they didn't know the Sith had returned. They essentially wiped out the Jedi. It killed anyone they considered even Force sensitive, that might be even children. They thought they'd wiped out the Sith. This is why their return was not they did not know they would return. This is why they were surprised when they saw Darth Maul. And then when they suspect, they're not sure. So Anakin gets told that he is in fact the Sith Lord they've been looking for. Tells them go ahead, and then basically essentially don't trust what they say, just watch what they do. So he goes and tells Mace Windu, and they say, we're simply going to go and arrest him. That's not what happens. That's a straight up lie. Mace Windu straight up lies to Anakin when he says, they're just going to simply, because they immediately pull out their lightsaber. Jedis don't pull out their lightsabers. They're simply going to arrest. And that's when Palpatine pulls out his and says, no. Because he knows they're there to kill him. He set the trap and they walked in. Then when Anakin runs in, he sees Palpatine do this and get the lightning disfiguring him, and he plays the victim. So Anakin sees Mace Windu and Palpatine's weak. He plays it like, oh my god, and Mace Windu stand over, and Anakin said, you said you were going to arrest him. I need him. He's the only one that can save my wife. He goes, no, he's too evil. He must be killed. Forcing Anakin to cut his hand off, and that's when Palpatine strikes and kills Mace Windu, solidifying him as Vader. And so he cries as he gets on, falls to his knees, knowing what he's just done. He just caused the death to a Jedi Master. He's once again traumatized, but he knows there's no way out. He submits to Palpatine, becomes Vader, and what's more fucked up at the absolute tragedy, Anakin, and Hayden Christensen's performance is so awesome, is that he's sent to do one of the most horrifying things, kill a bunch of children. That's how evil Palpatine is. He slaughters these children. We only see it later. And then, like Padme says, when they all agree to make him the Emperor, when they're all clapping, that's when she says, so this thou Republican dies, in loud applause. That's why when Anakin and probably my favorite lightsaber battle in all of the Star Wars movies is this battle between Anakin and who's become now Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi. The way this fight goes, this lightsaber is probably my favorite one. It's just awesome. We're going back to Luke and Vader. Both times are good, But there's something about this fight. The acting between these two actors is so amazing. And the fact that Obi-Wan admits he failed him. He thought because of Qui-Gon Jinn, he took on the responsibility to train Anakin, and that's why he has to admit he failed him, because he did. He never really properly trained him. He gave up on him, and he ran off doing his own thing. So at this point, the tragedy is Obi-Wan promised Qui-Gon Jinn right before he died that he would train him, because he knew, and Anakin's downfall was absolutely preventable. Like I said, and I'll get back to Jar Jar Binks. The thing about Jar Jar Binks is, and why I love it, is his arc. He goes from a teenager to an adult. Like Anakin's downfall, and Jake Lloyd was great as young Anakin, playing him as a little boy. I know when I heard she say that, this is how, at first, like, oh, okay, because when I'm picturing, when Leia says in the message, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you fought with my father, or she said, no, General Kenobi, you fought with my father in the Clone Wars, I was thinking when they met, Anakin was an adult. I didn't think, he was a child when they met. I thought that, okay. I wasn't thinking the first time they met was that Anakin was a little boy. Seeing the prequels, I love the idea that he was a little kid. And he was smart. He built C-3PO. So, and I thought Jake Lloyd was great. Now, Jar Jar Binks is a fascinating character. He's a Gundam. And all the actors who play the Gundams all speak Pidgin, which is the language of Papua New Guinea. Try actually learning the damn language. It's hard as hell. Jar Jar Binks has been kicked out because they want him to become an adult. Because you see that at the end of the Phantom Menace, when he's been given the title, he comes back, they think he's become an adult. He's not a child anymore. That's why he was sent out, like a walkabout, to become an adult. So when he comes back, they give him the title General Binks. And so he's put in charge, because they believe he's now ready to command. And luckily, they succeed. I mean, he wasn't really ready. He kind of fucks up, runs away, but then ends up saving the day, But yeah, so he goes from goofy to then becoming an adult, and, eventually he's, he goes from goofy, idiotic character to forgetting he's even in the third in Revenge of the Sith. People do forget, because all they remember is he being goofy in the Phantom Menace. Then he says that one goofy line in Attack of the Clones. But then he became an adult. And he's like Luke Skywalker. He goes from, kid, teenager, his arc is this way. He develops up. And Luke Skywalker is a whiny child, first two movies. By the third, he's an adult. He's become a Jedi. And he builds his sister's confidence. And he faces his father and he redeems him. And his father kills his grandfather. Okay, Jar Jar Binks goes from stupid, goofy character that, I get it, people think, oh my god, he's a goddamn annoying kid. Yeah, but if you watch his progression, he grows into an adult by the third film. Anakin's downfall is he's never treated like an adult by the Jedis, by the Jedi Masters. He's treated like a child. No wonder he whines and complains. Now, people complain about this dialogue where he says, Thand is rough, you're everything, you're soft. That line is so deliciously cheesy, like Padme saying, Anakin, you're pretty command. Because if you go back, it's what George Lucas writes. He writes cheesy dialogue. It's in the original trilogy, it's in the prequels, it's in his Howard the Duck movie that he wrote, it's in it's 3 of the Indiana Jones films. The only problem with the Crystal Skulls is that it's written to series. If he goofed it up like he did with the original Indiana Jones film, then you have a solid comedy, which it should have been. It was taken too serious, and that's why it kind of is a messed up movie. But here, his writing is all based on his childhood. Serials that he saw as a kid. Tom Connors of Midnight Edge could tell you about this because he has them. Like Buck Rogers. Buck Rogers TV show is as goofy as the serial, because I've seen some of them. They're goofy. The Batman like serials that they put on were cheesy and goofy. The Shadow, goofy and cheesy. This is how serials were. This is what George Lucas based his writing on. He went to theater. He didn't have TV. He had a radio. He had to go to the theater on Saturday, on the weekends, and pay to watch serials, which are what we call now series. They were, and so that's where he got the idea as an adult to write Star Wars. And and that's the thing, is if you really take your bias of the prequels and just sit back and realize the original trilogy's goofy. Razorfist said this. He was right. The prequels are everything that's cheesy, dick goodness that the original trilogy is. If you actually just watch the prequels again, you'll realize Jar Jar Binks, yes, he's annoying. He's a teenager. Every teenager is annoying. Go ask any parent that has a kid that hit puberty, became a teenager. God, are they annoying? I know because I was annoying. Everybody goes through this. Every parent deals with annoying children. So yes, that's the thing. But if you watch Jar Jar Binks, he grows. He only says one goofy thing, like I said, in the Attack of the Clones. And that's where he said, Annie, you call him so big. And Anakin shuts it down by saying, yeah, nice to see you too. And he stops. He does. Now, with this, I was like, yeah, it's... And people go, always give the excuse of Natalie Portman's performance. She's terrible. But her cheesy line of Anakin, you're breaking my heart, is so well done, it fits in the cheesiness. And like I said, you can look at Luke Skywalker is basically in the prequels, you can look at Anakin's downfall, if sort of this downward, and he's whiny, yes, so is Luke, his son, is the same thing. In 2 of the movies, he whines, oh, I can't do this, it's impossible, no one can do this. He complains a lot. So does Anakin, but Anakin's justified. He's told he's the chosen one. He points this out, and yet he's treated as a child. No one respects him. His wife doesn't even seem to respect him. And it's tragic how he becomes Vader. That's the whole thing. And Leia's a lot like her mother. Bossy until she kind of loses her confidence, and it's her brother that builds her back up by Return of the Jedi. Leia's a bossy, and I hear people go, oh, I don't like the bossy woman, but that's Leia in Empire Strikes Back. She completely keeps talking down to Han, trashing him, treating him like crap, to the point it's like, yeah. And then you look at prequels, okay, Attack of the Clones, same thing. Padme talks down to Anakin. In The Phantom Menace, she doesn't do that with Anakin when he's a little boy. And Anakin sort of plays it up, like, okay, goofs around with that when she basically kind of talks, down to him like she's better than him. When, she's simply a senator. She's no longer the queen. But yeah, everything about these movies, the prequels, they're as goofy as the original trilogy. Like I said, take this whole thing, oh my god, the prequels are terrible. Watch them again and realize how really different Jar Jar Binks is from Phantom Menace to Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith. Look at Anakin. He's a little boy, then he's a young man who has a right to complain about things because he was told he was a chosen one. He was supposed to be, and then what do the Jedi do? They treat him like a child. It's only Qui-Gon Jinn that looked at him and believed him. None of the other Jedi wanted to give him a second thought. And the only other one that actually respected Anakin was Palpatine. Not Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan didn't respect Anakin. He abandons him. He goes off and does his own thing and leaves Anakin to watch over Amidala. You're supposed to be training him to become this great Jedi. How is that going to happen when he's basically just escorting a princess, or who became a senator by the third film, by the second. It kind of defeats the purpose of him being the chosen one. And no wonder he complains. For all the people, oh my god, he whines all the time. Yeah, he has a reason. He's told, chosen, yet then they treat him like a child. They never respect him. It's because they never wanted him. It was Qui-Gon Jinn on his death. He asked for Anakin to be trained, and Yoda obliged, but yet he constantly leaves Anakin to go off and do something else. He never takes, if you look at it, when Qui-Gon Jinn goes to the Trade Federation, to Naboo, he brings Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's training him. You don't see that. You really don't see that in the, Attack of the Clones. It's they're both sent different, separate paths. They come back, but, yeah. And basically, Obi-Wan's right. He failed Anakin. He failed him. He said, we were like brothers, but he did. He admits it. I failed you. I failed, he failed to notice that Anakin was having problems. He failed to notice that the issues he was having. He wasn't there for him because he was off doing something else. Anakin has made it easy for Palpatine. So yeah, I'm recommending people put your biases aside and give this another chance. It's quite the prequels are a lot better than you give them credit for. I get that people don't, because they didn't, a lot of people are Disney fans. They're not really Star Wars fans because you didn't have the original trilogy theatrical versions to see in theater when you weren't born when these came out. You may have seen the extended editions in theater if you were old enough. But your real, true, in theaters was the prequel. So yeah, you didn't have that to go back. You've seen them, but it's not the same thing as watching them on TV as seeing the movies in theater. So yeah. And one more thing I'm going to talk about real quick before I end this is this. This was the original 2003 Clone Wars. And it was produced by George Lucas, but it was developed by Genndy, this guy right here. This guy who created the Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Laboratory. He created this Clone Wars series. I'm going to tell you, it's better than David Filoni's Clone Wars, because it had 3 seasons and it went between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and it ends literally. This thing could not have been more perfect. It literally, this is what this I don't like because it's Dave Filoni, it's garbage. I don't care for the stupid movie, but, this was so perfectly done. It literally showed like how they were setting up, targeting Anakin, how Palpatine was targeting Anakin, and he used Count Dooku. This is why if you see, the Attack of the, Revenge of the Sith, without seeing this, you're not going to really understand the whole beginning of Revenge of the Sith when they're going after, because it had to do with everything was set in place for Anakin to follow the dark side. They were targeting him. They sent, Count Dooku sent his apprentice, Vintage Assange, I think was her name, after, Anakin. And they faced off. Then, like I said, it all leads into Revenge of the Sith. Dave Filoni's Clone Wars didn't come out till 3 years after that's why Ahsoka was never mentioned, because she didn't exist. Yes, George Lucas did tell Dave Filoni, go ahead, but here's the thing. This is a far better series, and the animation, I like the animation by Genndy. He has a style that works. And so, and this was a solid 3 seasons. Yeah, 3 seasons, 25 episodes. You don't need that many. See, it's right here. You had 10, well, it says 25, but yeah, it shows, see, and here they are. Here, and there was, 5 episodes. It was perfectly done to tie go right in. George Lucas did produce this. And like I said, it's far better than the Dave Filoni Clone Wars because it was a tight 3 season that leads you right in Revenge of the Sith. And yeah, it didn't have the Ahsoka, it didn't have a lot of the stupid shit that was in Dave Filoni's crappy Clone Wars. It just was a perfectly tight, you had what made it great. And I thought the animation style for it was far better. This is better than Dave Filoni's Clone Wars. Like I said, people should really give this another chance and take the blinders off, and just really sit back and just watch and see how really cheesy these movies are, and then watch these first three, the prequels, then watch the original. I guarantee you'll start to realize, oh my god, they're essentially cheesy. The original trilogy is as cheesy as fuck. It has dick cheese. It has so much cheesiness. It's essentially a soap opera, and soap operas are cheesy. They are. So yeah. And like I said, Jar Jar Binks is an unappreciated fucking great character because he's goofy, yes. He's goofy as shit, but the thing was, he grows into an adult by the third film. You don't even realize he's even in the fucking movie. And that's what's so great about him. He goes from goofy, stupid, idiotic character, teenager, to an adult by the third movie. And it's just, Armin Best is so amazing at playing this character, and I hated the fact that people made him contemplate suicide. Yeah, Misa thinks it's broken, it's pigeon. It's how the people of Papua New Guinea speak. I say this with passion. I'm a true George Lucas Star Wars fan. I know a lot of people are Disney fans. They'll say, I love the original. But you didn't have those when you were a kid. You had the prequels. You were a bigger Disney fan. And most of you still subscribe to Disney Plus. You still watch Disney stuff. I've seen many of these people on YouTube talking about this stuff Disney puts out. I don't like Disney stuff. I haven't liked it in a long time. I think it's funny how they say they're, but they sure love talking about, and by the way, these are the same people that went after George Lucas over the prequels, and when he announced, and by the way, just another thing, when he made the announcement in 2012 that he was ready to do a new trilogy, that's all they heard to go flipping out on Twitter over him, and they listened to the rest of what he said. He mentioned that he's just had a daughter and he wants to spend more time with her, unlike he did when he was working on the other films. He didn't really spend any time at home. He was busy. This is why his first wife divorced him. He didn't want to have that problem with not being around his daughter. He wanted to spend time with his daughter. And he just got married, so he had been working on treatments for years on the new trilogy. If he given a chance, people had stopped and waited for him to clarify things. I think he planned, my thinking was he was going to write them, he was going to produce them, and essentially hire the director. He was probably going to work with Lawrence Kasdan to get the scripts finalized, and then hire the director or directors to direct this new trilogy. I don't think he planned directing because it took him 10 years to do the, and if he's wanted to spend time, he's not going to have time to direct. So if people had been patient, they would have gotten a new trilogy. He didn't direct, but he wrote and produced, and then we would have seen if he still had it. I think he still did. But the problem was, we never know because people went after him, made him sell his company to Disney, and I'm going to say right now for all those people, he's got the last laugh. He wanted Disney to own it. Now Disney owns it, they can do whatever they want. I find it funny when people point out, the people over here, the progressives, the alpha, they're all upset that people are criticizing this activist hired to do the Rey film. I'm laughing at the people who are losing their shit over. They wanted Disney to own this. Now they're upset because Disney owns it and they're doing what they want with it. This isn't my stuff. I don't care if people like the Disney Star Wars. Fine, you can have it. I don't want people to sit there and go, if you like Disney Star Wars, good for you. It's for you. It's not for me. I'm not one of these people saying, burn the place to the ground. No. It's like, I don't care if people don't like the prequels. You're allowed to not like something, but you have no right to say if you know, you're a piece of shit if you you know, or anybody who likes Disney stuff. Oh, you don't know shit. You don't own this. You never did. Get over yourselves. Like I said, give this another shot. This is far better than you could have been. And if you really sit down and look at Jordan, just take out, yes, he's annoying for a reason. He's a goddamn teenager. Then watch the original and see all the goofiness there, and you'll realize these movies are a lot better than you gave. That's why I'm a die-hard Star Wars fan. I don't say, oh, the prequels. You know, my Star Wars films go this way. Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith. I'm going to say slight nod to Phantom Menace, then New Hope. Then it's a toss-up between Empire and Attack of the Clones because they both have some of the same issues. But I'm going to go Empire and then Attack of the Clones. Yeah. But I just wanted to do this real quick because I do want people to think, yeah, I understand, but if you really, really give it a chance, you might actually find out you like the prequels more than you realized. Give it another shot. Just realize Jar Jar Binks in the first movie is a kid. Anakin's whining because he's allowed to. Because think about it. If you're told the other chosen one, people treat you like a child, wouldn't you complain? Of course you would. So get over yourselves. These movies are great. They're just as great as the original trilogy. Too bad he doesn't own it, but I don't care what they do anymore. It's owned by Disney. They can piss on their. If they want to make shitty Star Wars film, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. This is Gilgamesh. I will talk to you later. Bye.